Hi and welcome to the Commissioner's Report. I'm your host Jeff Foley and I'm joined today by Commissioner Neil Cumby. Commissioner, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you.
So what are we talking about today? What's on your mind?
Well, I want to talk about the Value Adjustment Board. We had a meeting recently and there's a couple of commissioners on the Value Adjustment Board, me and Commissioner Braswell, and I had a gentleman call the other day and he was asking questions about the VAB, and I thought it might be an interesting topic for others to understand how it came about, what the purpose of the VAB is, and how they may benefit from it sometime in the future.
So let's start right at the top. Value Adjustment Board, I'm guessing to some people, myself included, you're talking hieroglyphics at first. So give me a little bit of a definition of what the Value Adjustment Board is and what it does.
I'll do better than a definition. I'm going to read some prepared notes that I have here.
Okay.
And the statutory history of the Value Adjustment Board. The board was created in 1969, Chapter 69-140, and was originally found in Section 193.26 and was known as the Board of Adjustment. Effective January 1st, 1970, and applicable to the 1970 assessment rolls. Consisted of 3 members, the governing board of the county, and 3 members. The governing board of the county, so that would be all, I guess, at that time, and 2 members of the Board of Public Instruction, which is the school board. The clerk of the governing board of the county acted as the clerk for the Board of Tax Adjustment. Was authorized to hear complaints against individual assessments, hear complaints against denials of homestead exemption by the tax assessor, and hear disputed or appealed applications for exemptions from ad valorem taxation. In Section 193.2701, paren 4, the Board of Tax Adjustment was authorized but not required to appoint special masters to take testimony and make recommendations to the board. Well, that was in the early days when I was a commissioner years ago. We would sit as the Value Adjustment Board and we would hear those appeals. People would come in if they disagreed with their value or the valuation that the property appraiser put on it, and they would appeal to the VAB, and we would decide whether or not we needed to go further or just deny their appeal. So they got to stand in front of the board. Also homestead exemptions, any of the other exemptions, and there's a lot of exemptions in state law. The legislature put them in there for good reason, to really help people who have special circumstances or conditions and may need help. And I think when you look at the way prices of everything have gone up these days, there are people who certainly don't want to miss out on that benefit that the law entitles them to have. So we'll talk about some of those. I'll list some of the exemptions in a few minutes. But in 1976, the name was changed to Property Appraisal Adjustment Board. And then in 1991, the name was changed to Value Adjustment Board. And then in 2002, this was while I was still a board member years ago, the counties having a population of more than 75,000 were required to appoint a special magistrate. So while it was optional before, after 2002, if you had a county with a population of 75,000 or greater, you had to appoint a special magistrate. And we do that. The VAB appoints special magistrates, appraisers for value, so they hear the value appeals and decide whether or not there's legitimacy to what the taxpayer's saying. And then there's those with exemptions that maybe have been denied or they've missed deadlines, and they've got to have good calls, to explain why they missed those deadlines, and that's an attorney. So I don't know exactly how many are working right now, but I think there's several that are actually on contract with the clerk to do the work for the VAB, to listen to those and read those applications. And some of the dates here, the exemptions, if you're going to appeal those, you have to appeal by August 1st. And if you want to appeal valuation, it's September the 11th is the deadline. And there's a cost of $15 that you got to pay the clerk of courts, and you can actually file that petition on the website, or they will mail you a form to fill out. But you got to have a good cause letter to explain, why you're filing the appeal to go along with that. And then there is an absolute deadline of March 1st for late filers. You can file late, but you got to have a really, really good cause letter to go with that, and as to why you missed the earlier dates, the August 1st and the September the 11th. And people who are interested can email the VAB at vab@polk-county.net. And there's some folks in the clerk's office that work full-time on this, or at least for the season they work full-time on it. And and they're there to answer questions and provide forms and help people file those petitions. But that's done through Stacy Butterfield's office.
So there is still time for people to do that before March. I'm going to regurgitate a little.
You know, they can do it, but it's a late file.
Right.
And so they've got to have a letter that really explains why they missed these deadlines. And
I think you called it a good cause letter.
Yeah, a good cause letter to make sure that whoever's looking at it, whether it's you know, the appraiser, special magistrate, or the attorney special magistrate, that they will understand why, you know, they should grant that late filed petition to be considered. And you know, I'm sure some reasons are better than others.
So I'll regurgitate a little bit of what you just said just to make sure I properly understand it. When people are filing appeals and they want to come before the VAB, they're filing appeals because an exemption got denied or because they don't like what their property's appraised at, for example?
The VAB was created really to settle differences between the property appraiser and the taxpayer. And there's a lot of reasons why there could be disagreement, whether it was denial of an exemption, whether it was denial of, say, Greenbelt. You know, there's probably not a lot of that goes on. I know that property appraiser works closely with ag, and they've gotten, I think, pretty good at understanding agriculture and practices that folks have, and so they're pretty widely accepted. But if there was a denial, you can appeal that. You can appeal any denial of any of these exemptions that are out there. And it says when someone owns property and makes it his or her permanent residence or the permanent residence of his or her dependent, the property owner may be eligible to receive a homestead exemption that would decrease the property's taxable value by as much as $50,000. The exemption qualifies the home for the Save Our Homes assessment limitation. While the exemption is non-transferable, a homeowner may be able to transfer or port all of the or part of the assessment difference to a new Florida homestead. So if you've been benefiting from the Save Our Homes cap and you decide you need to downsize or you need to upsize, I don't know, it doesn't really matter, but if you're leaving one home but you're going to a new one, you have 3 years to use that portability. So you can keep those savings that you had you know, accumulated in your old home. You can transfer some or all of that to the new home. And people need to understand that because it was put in law to, you know, to help people, and again, people need to be able to take advantage of the benefits that they're entitled to.
And what happens when somebody files it? What's the process?
The special magistrates, they look at those petitions, they decide if they're valid or not, if there's good reason, good cause for late filing, if they've been denied improperly because there's some misunderstanding. It's just their job to look and really kind of be the mediator between property appraiser and the taxpayer. And you know, if there's an issue, and I would say that most of those probably don't succeed. I'm sure the success rate with the property appraiser is probably pretty good, but there are situations, I think, where, you know, people do benefit from going to the VAB and actually succeed. At least in the old days they did. I hadn't looked at those numbers lately, but it's the question that came up and what got me interested in this and caused me to want to share and talk about this was a gentleman who was going to late file, and he was wondering if he was denied, if he would get an opportunity to appear before the VAB. And while he will not have the ability to actually have us hear the case, they can come to our VAB meeting. They can ask to be heard if they were denied for any reason on anything related to, you know, the VAB business. And if the VAB, the board, decides that they have, you know, a case or there's some reason why it needs to be looked at further, then we can send that back to a different special magistrate to decide to, you know, look at it again and come back and bring us another recommendation.
So the denial is not the end of the line.
They can't actually stand in front of us under the current arrangement and law and have us listen to their appeal, but we can listen to their appeal. We just can't make a decision on it other than to send it back, kind of remand it, if you will, back to another special magistrate, which is probably you know, a good thing. If it gets sent back there, then there's the board believes there's some reason for it to be further considered. Okay.
And you mentioned the homestead exemption. Tell me a little bit, what are some other exemptions and what are they for?
Yeah, I don't think I brought them all with me here. They're for widows, and they're for folks who are blind, and they're amputees, and there are for first responders who've been injured. So there's a lot of good exemptions out there. Probably not a lot of people qualify for most of them, but they're there for a reason. They're there to help people, like I say, because of their special conditions or circumstances. And you want people to know about it, and you want them to use it. I was even thinking that with our new and improved website, that I know we can provide links to the property appraiser's office, but it may also help to have information on our website, because I'm really through the new website, it's been my interest, and when we're talking about legal notices, I want people to get more information, and I want it to be in one location. When they get on our website, they can find just about anything they need to know. That's my goal. Whether we ever get that accomplished or not, I don't know, but I know that the new website everybody seems to like. I think Diane and you all and everybody involved has done a great job on it so far. And I look forward to seeing additional information there that will help people, and they can sit and find it easily.
Keep it as a living, breathing thing that grows and gives the residents what they need. I think that's the goal. Homestead exemption and beyond, these are not things that people receive automatically. Yeah,
the homestead exemption, if you are new to Florida, if you buy a home, you must file for homestead exemption. Nobody's going to do it for you. You've got to take it, your own initiative and get it done, because what'll happen is you'll miss possibly a year, and you'll be like, why didn't I get this, well, because you never filed for it. So it's important that, and that's one thing I think that we almost need to have, like a flashing thing on our website, that if you're a new homeowner here, don't forget to file for homestead exemption.
Because essentially what it does is it reduces the tax that you're paying.
Yes. And and people are entitled to it. It's the law of the land, and you want them to be able to do that, regardless of where they come from or how long they've been here. The law allows homeowners to have that, and I want to make sure that we let people know and they take advantage of that, because again, a lot of people right now with the inflation, our rise in assessed values, they need all the help they can get.
I think that's pretty important information. Anything else you want to add to the conversation, Commissioner?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about the VAB.
Well, I think it's helpful to our residents to know, so we'll make sure it gets passed along. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Commissioner's Report. I'm your host, Jeff Foley, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to subscribe and like our social media.